Down goes Pidgeot. Rodrigo putting all his faith in a 2-shield Hawlucha. The opponent sends out Walrus. Walrus might be hitting Hawlucha for super effective with its ice type damage. However, Hawlucha has that hard hitting flying press. It's going to be high Walrus, bye Walrus. If Pidgeot should return, due to their sub-normal typing, they take neutral from fighting a Hawlucha about to return the bird back to its Pokeball as well. So, welcome back to the channel. The start of the season did see Mexico get a regional exclusive, Hawlucha. This Pokemon has found some reasonable play in the Open Great League, and that is mostly due to its legacy move, Flying Press. Only Hawlucha and Pikachu Libre have access to this move. It's 40 energy for 90 damage, and Hawlucha is getting that huge same type attack bonus, so my god, does it hit like an absolute truck. However, with only access to Poison Jab and Aerial Ace as its fast move and coverage move, Hawlucha is possibly going to struggle in the Open Ultra League. A huge thank you to my good friend Rodrigo for grinding out and excelling one, and today we're going to find out, is Hawlucha any good in the Ultra League? So getting into the battles in game 1, we see Pidgeot into Cresselia. Rodrigo does what Pidgeot users do best and debuff the opponent 2 stages with the Feather Dance. You can see now that Moonblast does absolutely nothing. Rodrigo continues to overfarm. This second charge move still not going to do a whole lot to Pidgeot. Rodrigo continuing to farm up. He's now full sending the Brave Bird. Is Cresselia willing to shield up the stab Brave Bird? They are not, and Cresselia tanked that reasonably easy. We now see the pivot into Cobalion, and the opponent actually says that fuck that, and they concede the match. Moving on to the next one. We see Pidgeot into Jellicent. Pidgeot usually pretty dominant in this matchup. However, this Jellicent is running Bobble, and they recently got access to Surf, so you can see Jellicent can hold its own if it's on the Hex Bubble Beam moveset. This is really dominant. Rodrigo over farming and full sending the Brave Bird. The opponent lets it go, and Brave Bird is pretty disappointing in the Ultra League as Monarch's so thick. Rodrigo sends Brave Bird number 2, and the opponent commits a shield. Rodrigo's now maximum debuffed his defense, so he is going to be forced to shield up the Surf, and then we see the pivot into Cobalion. This is a pretty standard ABB team. We've got one flyer with 2 fighters in the back. The opponent full sends the Shadow Ball and then pivot out into Obstagoon. Holy smokes, what sort of counter swap is that? Obstagoon does hit Cobalion, steel typing for super effective with the counters. However, due to their dark normal typing, they're taking double super effective. Rodrigo shields, commits to the farm down. We've got the Stone Edge locked and loaded. Jellicent returns. If they don't shield, they're about to be returned to their Pokeball. The opponent lets it go. They've got Snorlax in the back. This Sacred Sword should be drawing the final Protect Shield, and then it's going to be Hawlucha's time to shine. As we have no Protect Shields remaining, Rodrigo chooses to come in to the Mighty Pigeon to absorb the Body Slam. Not a bad play. I don't know how bulky Hawlucha is, as we haven't really seen it in action yet, but what we are about to see in action is just how hard Flying Press hits Snorlax. Pretty thick, but clearly not thick enough, as Hawlucha vanquishes it back to its Pokeball. Moving on to the next one. We see a pretty neutral matchup. Pidgeot into Cobalion. Rodrigo going straight for the Brave Bird. Most opponents love to Feather Dance, and Rodrigo full sends it. He's rewarded, landing the Brave Bird, and we pivot out into Hawlucha. Hawlucha will only take neutral from the Stone Edge. Due to fighting, resisting rock and flying, taking super effective, the opponent now pivots out into Jellicent, and this is where I think Hawlucha is going to struggle. Stab Aerial Ace did absolutely nothing, and these Poison Jabs are resisted. Hawlucha gonna fire off Aerial Ass number 2. That's why I did call it Aerial Ass, because you can see by its pitiful damage output, it's an absolute arse move. The Jellyfish full sends the Shadow Ball. I think Surf probably would have been enough to knock out. Hopefully this doesn't mean they're on Twin Nukes, and would you look at that, we get hit with an Ice Beam, and holy smokes, non-stab Ice Beam does massive damage to Pidgeot. Rodrigo now in an absolute dreadful position. He full sends the Brave Bird, and he's going to put 2 shield Cobalion versus the world. The opponent has Scrafty in the back. However, they've got 2 Protect Shields, 2 high behind. They're just going to be ramping up this counter damage, firing off pop after pop. Rodrigo actually threw 2 double kicks and the charge move when using 3 turn versus 2 turn. He should have just thrown after 1, but I think whatever he does, he is pretty much doomed. He is going to shield up the next power up punch. However, I think only 2 more counters will probably be enough to knock out. This time he does throw at better timing. Sacred Sword draws the final Protect Shield, and that next counter knocks us out, and this is absolutely game over. Very nice Twin Nukes from the opponent. Moving on to the next one. We see Pidgeot into Tapu Fini. Most fighters hate to see Tapu Fini. Hawlucha being the exception to that rule, as we've got access to Poison Jab. We fire off the Feather Dance, lowering the opponent's attack. They farm up to what could be a Moonblast. However, as they're now 2-stage debuffed on attack, Pidgeot survives that fairly well. Rodrigo now farming up to the Brave Bird and he's full sending it. Does the opponent want to commit an early shield? They do not. We win lead and we see the instant pivot into Cobalion to answer the opponent's Giratina. Cobalion doesn't have the worst matchup here. Stone Edge is pretty decent neutral damage unless the opponent is running Shadow Force. Shadow Sneak is a pretty trash move. The opponent farms up a boatload of energy and Rodrigo gets nuked again. What the heck is going on? The opponent is running Shadow Force. That did a lot of damage. Rodrigo fires off one more Stone Edge. I think the opponent should be able to Shadow Claw farm us all the way down before the next Stone Edge. The opponent actually chooses to throw the Dragon Claw. That takes care of our Cobalion. We send back in Pidgeot. We know they haven't got ancient power, but at this range, pretty much anything is going to knock out our Pidgeot. We shield up the Dragon Claw. Rodrigo isn't going to be able to farm down. Giratina makes one more Dragon Claw. The wing attacks have put this into a range where we can probably Poison Jab, farm them down. The opponent's got Charizard in the back, and this is going to be pretty much game over. Rodrigo fires off the resisted Flying Press. Charizard commits a shield. I think even if Rodrigo calls the bait here, there's not really much we can do. The opponent full sends the Blast Burn, and that is all she wrote. A couple of very rough games with Rodrigo getting boomed. Moving on to the next battle, we see Pidgeot into Dragonite. The opponent does outpace us to the charge move. Rodrigo not going to shield up the Dragon Claw. He continues to overfarm and again he's full sending the Brave Bird. Is the opponent willing to call the Feather Dance bait? They actually shield up the Brave Bird and we'll see a pivot into Hawlucha. This will be our first real look to see how bulky Hawlucha is. Dragon Claw does reasonable damage and the opponent again answers with Jellicent. This time Rodrigo going for the double resisted Flying Press. Fun fact for you all, Jellicent is one of the few Pokemon where Aerial Ace is actually the correct move to go for. For example, if you're using a Hawlucha into a Nidoqueen where Flying Press is only single resisted and Aerial Ace is neutral, Flying Press is actually better DPE. Let that just sink in. Getting back into the commentary, this Jellicent is actually running Surf. The move it did get access to this season. Rodrigo shields up the first, but this Jellicent is absolutely loaded. We should be able to survive one more Surf. However, we're super low. The opponent snipes with a Dragon Breath and again we find ourselves in a really tricky spot. And to be honest, Hawlucha isn't really doing all that much. We go for the Sacred Sword bait. The opponent chooses to shield it up, which is probably a good suggestion that they're going to throw the Superpower. Rodrigo invests his final Protect Shield. We correctly shield up the Superpower. Due to Superpower lowering both attack and defense, resisted Sacred Sword is enough to knock out. Surely Rodrigo can't win this game. The opponent sends back out Jellicent. I believe it's only a Surf as they've only thrown 4 hexes and it is a Surf indeed. The opponent's final Pokemon is the big Tin Can. This is usually a pretty decent matchup for Cobalion. However, I think we're going to need 3 Sacred Swords to knock out. It looks like even 3 might not be enough. Rodrigo is going to outpace the 3, but our 3 going to knock out the second, gets them into the yellow. We're at the third. If this doesn't knock out, the opponent has the move locked and loaded. They survive on 1 HP and a Dream, and we're going to lose another heartbreaking match. Come on, Rodrigo, let's go, champ. Let's see what Hawlucha can do in the next battle. It's the battle of the Flyers, the very annoying Pigeon versus the Kentucky Fried Chicken, Bird of Death. The opponent farms up to what could be a Brave Bird and Rodrigo out here calling the bait, and again he gets nuked. Holy smokes, if I had a pound for every time Rodrigo got nuked in the video, I ironically wouldn't have to go back to work tomorrow. But on a more serious note, Rodrigo pivots out into Hawlucha. These poison jabs are tearing through the opponent. The opponent now goes for the Flame Charge and we see a pivot into Gliscor. This is a pretty interesting matchup as wing attacks are super effective. However, due to Hawlucha's fighting flying typing, we do resist both Night Slash and Earthquake, which is the usual moveset. What makes this interesting is due to Gliscor's ground flying typing, our quick move of Poison Jab is resisted. If you remember earlier in the video, I said when a move is single resisted, it's actually better DP, so Rodrigo actually should be going for Flying Press. I've looked this up on PvPoke. Flying Press is 1.0 DP, whereas Aerial Ace is only 0.86, despite it being neutral. Rodrigo goes for the flying press and we actually manage to win the 0 shields. However, again, Rodrigo finds himself in a really tricky spot as the opponent's got the GOAT Shadow Swamper in the back. Rodrigo calls the bait and finally makes the correct call. The opponent is a master baiter and this master baiter might get found out. They throw one more Hydro Cannon. This time Rodrigo throws at the correct timing. One double kick and the charge move. Swampert lets it go. Rodrigo again throws one double kick and the charge move. He's just got to be mindful of the sacrificial swap. The opponent doesn't switch. This Sacred Sword is going to be enough to knock out. How much health has that final Pokemon got? That Talonflame is pretty healthy. They managed to incinerate Farmus all the way down. And Hawlucha has no HP and we still lose, despite Rodrigo putting in a valiant effort. Moving on to the next battle. When you're on a losing streak, you don't want to lead Pidgeot into Stunfisk. Rodrigo looks to catch the Rock Slide on Cobalion and he doesn't catch. He's now calling the Rock Slide Bay, and again we get nuked. The opponent now sends out Charizard. It looks like they're going for the Wing Attack farm down, so at least Rodrigo should get a Protect Shield here with the Stone Edge. The opponent does shield it up, however they do manage to Wing Attack farm us all the way down. Charizard with a boatload of energy is pretty scary. We do correctly shield up a Blast Burn. Rodrigo now over farms, fires off the Brave Bird. Is Charizard willing to go down 2 shields? No, they're not. Brave Bird returns them to their Pokeball. Rodrigo looking to go for another Rock Slide catch. This time he is successful, so at first you don't succeed, try again, and that is a really nice catch from Rodrigo. The opponent's got Swampert in the back. The Mud Shots are resisted. However, Hawlucha probably not going to appreciate the Hydro Cannon. We do shield up, we return fire with the Flying Press. Is Swampert willing to commit that final shield? Yes, they are. Can Hawlucha survive a stab Shadow Hydro Cannon moment of truth? How bulky is this bird? We do survive. We're deep in the red. Rodrigo fires back the Flying Press. Shadow Swampert, not the bulkiest, but they do survive the Flying Press. Rodrigo looking to snipe. We don't snipe. Swampert makes one more Hydro Cannon. That does a lot of damage to our bird. Back out comes Stunfisk. We do double debuff their attack with the Feather Dance. Does this mean we survive a Rock Slide? It's going to be close. Moment of truth. We've got around 20% HP. Come on, Pidgeot. We do survive. We're left super low. Rodrigo farming up as much energy as possible. We fire off the Brave Bird, but this is going to do nowhere near enough damage. We then get Mud Shot down. Stunfisk makes the Rock Slide, and that is going to be all she wrote. Another valiant effort, but unfortunately another loss. Moving on to the next one. Pidgeot into Charizard. Are we going to get nuked again? The opponent builds up to what could be a Blast Burn. This time Rodrigo choosing to shield, and it's a good shield as the opponent full sent it. They now pivot out into Cofagrigus. Hello? These Shadow Claws are double resisted, and Rodrigo has now double debuffed their attack as well. So either Dark Pulse or Psychic isn't going to do a great deal of damage. The opponent fires off the Psychic. Rodrigo farms up to maximum energy. Fires off the Brave Bird, looking for the kill shot. The opponent lets it go. It doesn't quite one shot. However, we can come in to Cobalion. These double kicks are double resisted, so we are going to get a real hefty farm down. We get a huge farm down. We've got around 70-ish energy at a Wild Stab in the dark. Each double kick gives you 12 energy, and we've done 6 of them, so I actually think we're on 72. Quick maths. We now see why the opponent pivoted out into Cofagrigus. They're on a double go strategy with Runerigus in the back, and again we're in a really dreadful spot. Our Hawlucha has nowhere to run, nowhere to hide as Runerigus is ground, ghost typing, double resist poison jab. They double resist fighting moves, so Aerial Ass would be the only move we could hit him for any meaningful damage, and we already know that's trash. The opponent sends back out Charizard. They shield up the Feather Dance. Rodrigo goes for one more Feather Dance. The opponent still got one Protect Shield. They know that's only a Feather Dance. Are they going to try and wing attack us down? No, they're not. If this is a Dragon Claw, as it's 4 stages debuffed, it probably won't knock out. Pidgeot survives. We Simul KO. However, how the heck are we getting rid of this Runerigus? We send out Hawlucha. Rodrigo looking to call the Sand Tomb bait, and the opponent again is not baiting. Holy crap, that did a lot of damage. Tough decision to make. Rodrigo chooses to call the Sand Tomb, and it is a Sand Tomb. However, these Shadow Claws are now going to start tearing through us. We fire off the Flying Press. The opponent calls the bait, we wham bam combo play into the Stone Edge. Stone Edge still doesn't draw the Protect Shield. It's going to be Poison Jab versus Shadow Claw. Rodrigo going to shield up the Sand Tomb. Can we Poison Jab down a Ghost? And if you look at that, that was me asking Rodrigo, is this Pokemon good or is it trash? And I think the answer is probably more trash. However, we've still got a few more battles left for Hawlucha to redeem himself. Let's see if we manage to pull off some dubs. We lead Pidgeot into Swampert. Rodrigo going straight for the Brave Bird. Does the opponent respect the damage? They do not. They near get one shot. Rodrigo looks to snipe with Cobalion. Swampert makes one more Hydro Cannon. Cobalion can easily tank that, and the opponent answers with their own Pidgeot. Rodrigo again not baiting, going straight for the Stone Edge. Pidgeot respects it with a shield. They need to Brave Bird to take us out, and Rodrigo instantly clicks no shield. The opponent actually full sends the Brave Birds. It's nukes left, right and centre. Rodrigo now enters the Pidgeot mirror. We're farming up to the Brave Bird. We fire it off on what looks like CMP. This Brave Bird will be knocking out or drawing the final Protect Shield. The opponent commits that final shield, and Rodrigo is giving Hawlucha the best chance to shine, saving it 2 shields. The opponent pivots out into Walrus. Walrus might be hitting for super effective with the ice type damage, but we've got 2 Protect Shields to hide behind. We shield up the Icicle Sphere. Rodrigo farms up just before the next Icicle Sphere. Flying Press gonna vanquish Walrus back to its Pokeball. If Pidgeot should return, they take neutral and fighting as well. It's going to be high Pidgeot by Pidgeot. Hawlucha finally looking like an absolute Donny. Back out comes Swampert, and we Poison Jab down for a very impressive Hawlucha sweep. Finally, let's fucking go. Moving on to the next one. Pidgeot into Shadow Drapion. This is a matchup I've played many times. As the Shadow Drapion again, I'm out here distracting Rodrigo with the Facebook messages. Rodrigo farms up to the Brave Bird. He full sends it. Drapion commits the shield, and we see a pivot into Cobalion. The opponent answers with Trevenant. Trevenant pretty dominant here as they do double resisted double kicks. However, Stone Edge is nice neutral damage. The opponent farms up a whole heap of energy. Rodrigo gonna shield up a potential Shadow Ball, and the opponent does Shadow Ball. This should allow Rodrigo to get to one more Stone Edge on the CMP tie. Shadow Ball won't be one-shotting from this range. Stone Edge probably also not going to one-shot, but it will leave Trevenant super low. The opponent doesn't shield. Can we double kick down? Holy smokes, Cobalion manages to flip switch. And Cobalion still isn't done, firing off the Sacred Sword at Drapion. Drapion lets it go, and it's a CMP tie. Cobalion going on an absolute tear-up crunch, takes us out. Rodrigo sends back out Pidgeot, and he looks to catch the crunch on Hawlucha. Rodrigo pulling out all the stops towards the end of the video. The opponent's final Pokemon is Talonflame. This is where you should go for Flying Press, as it is only single resisted. Rodrigo does go for the Flying Press. The opponent shields it up. Rodrigo with 1 Protect Shield remaining. He allows the Flame Charge to hit us. Can we make one more Flying Press? Yes, we can. Flying Press is resisted, but it's a really strong move. It still does decent damage to Talonflame. Talonflame is at the next move. Rodrigo is going to have to shield up the Flame Charge. Can we outpace to the charge move? Rodrigo over farms as much as possible. Feather Dance is going to be taking care of Talonflame. When Drapion does return, can we outpace to the move? Yes, we can. We fire off the Feather Dance on CMP. I've got no idea why we don't Brave Bird, but that's enough to clutch up another very impressive dub. Let's go, Rodrigo, pulling off some very nice victories towards the end of the video. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to my friend Rodrigo, because I don't think hardly anyone has Hawlucha made. It's obviously a lot of resources and a lot of effort to excel a Hawlucha, and to be honest, from the video, is it worth doing? Probably not, but it is a fun, spicy pick. We're all about that fun, spicy content on the channel. So if you're enjoying the content, smash that like button. If you're new, consider subscribing if you'd like your battles featured on the channel. A link to my battle submission form is down below. I'd just like to say thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.